So when I started Sweetfish, I started trying to figure out how can I build, like, I know that relationships are powerful and I know that they can be life-changing. How do I bake that into my business? How do I build a relationship with somebody so that our friendship is ultimately like opens up business opportunities for me? I don't want to just like cold call people. I don't want to do the transactional thing that, you're right, is so prevalent in banking. I want to build genuine relationships. And I started thinking, how do I do that? Like, what do I actually need to do? Well, what if I started reaching out to people that would be my ideal customers? And what if I just started collaborating with them and creating content with them? So I am not them. I am not a VP of marketing at a B2B technology company with 50 plus employees, but I know that my buyer is. And so I maybe don't have a lot to say to that audience in and of myself, just like, say, a loan officer at a bank who specializes in construction loans. They might not have a lot to say about construction outside of the financial element of construction. But if they were to start a podcast featuring all of the construction company owners in their region and started interviewing those CEOs about the ins and outs of construction and what goes into it and how to bid projects and all of the nitty-gritty detail, that's doing a few different things. One, it's helping them build one-to-one relationships with the exact people that they are trying to do loans for. Two, it's educating that loan officer on different facets of the business, probably opening that loan officer's eyes to what other ways we can serve these companies. Because, man, we didn't even realize that way back, like 3 steps before we typically talk to them, there's an opportunity for our bank to step in and really serve them. And so you're opening up new revenue streams because you know your customer better. And then the content that comes out of it is, who do you think is going to listen to a podcast where you're interviewing CEOs of construction companies? Other CEOs of construction companies.
Exactly.
So I think it can work. I mean, it worked for me, obviously, in growing our business, but I think it can work in banking so well. I think doing local shows where you're highlighting people in your area, entrepreneurs in your area that you want to work with, having them share their story, whether it's, construction or just, hey, the Chicago Entrepreneur Podcast. There's so many ways you can slice and dice it. And I hope that more banks start to take advantage of this, especially post-COVID.
Yeah, hearing you talk through, I hear a couple things. You talked about sharing stories. That's what connects people together. Stories, I write about this. Stories bind us together, but it's also about transformations over transactions, transformation for the individual, listening, once again, education, empowerment, elevation. I loved your idea of the construction company and that commercial loan officer. I've made similar recommendations over the years, and it's niche markets. Like right now, post-COVID, local business want to get heard. They need to get into that local bank's community, because a community bank or a credit union, they're a commerce conduit. They take deposits from consumers, they give loans to consumers, but then they do the same thing for small business. There's one financial brand doing that, and they've been on this mission now for like the past 4 years. It's a community bank in Wisconsin, and they have a platform that they developed called Growin' Wisconsin, and it tells the stories, it highlights the stories of these local businesses. So yeah,
it's a brilliant strategy.
I love where you're going with this, but let's take this a little bit further, because okay, great, I buy into the idea that I'm a loan officer, I could have my show, I could be creating content, I could be building, one of the things that I also talk about is building a business of expertise, a book of business of expertise. But how do I do that? One of the things that you write about in your book is focusing on the process, not a single outcome. And that's a big thing, I think, shift in thinking for financial brand leaders.
Yeah, it's, to me, I use my team probably gets sick of me hearing me say it, but I use the term reverse engineering a lot. And ultimately, I just want to reverse engineer a particular result. And so you're masterful at this, as we've been working on your podcast and just seeing what you've done with your podcast on the back end of it, and the sequence of emails that I got as a guest leading up to this, and the questionnaire that I filled out, all of that stuff, breaking down what is the end result. I want to create an incredible experience for the guests that I'm featuring on a podcast or video series or a blog article that I'm going to be writing with somebody. I want to create an incredible experience for them. And then I also want to create incredible content for the consumer. And then I also want to build a long-lasting relationship with this person that I'm featuring on the show. There is process to be created around each of those things. So things like, creating a form that you have your admin or somebody else on your team send to every single guest that you book on the show, so that you know that pre-interview, they've been prepped, they know what you're going to talk about, they're good to go. During the actual interview itself, you have process around, I know that I'm going to ask these 2 or 3 questions that I know ends up creating really great content. So things like, hey, what are some myths in the industry right now that you just passionately disagree with? That tends to be great content. If you get people speaking contrarian and like, yes, man, everybody's doing this, but you should be doing this, that ends up being great content. You can do that repeatably over and over and over again if you bake that into your process and you make sure that you ask a question like that every single time you interview somebody. And then post-interview, what am I doing post-interview to make sure that these people stay on my radar long after the interview's over? Maybe every interview, I go and I do a second collaboration with them. And that second collaboration is really where the friendship deepens. So we get them on to do a podcast interview. And then I know 3 weeks later, I'm going to reach out and I'm going to say, hey, I'm doing this video series on LinkedIn. I'd love to just do a 1-minute video with you real quick. Are you open for, popping up Skype, or why did I just say Skype? Like I'm in 2011. Open up Zoom and do like a little 5-minute thing. And we'll use a minute clip of this video and I'll put it on LinkedIn. Now you've cemented that relationship. That's a process that you can repeat over and over again. Maybe you put them in your CRM and on their birthday, you send them, a fun gift certificate to a really cool restaurant in the area, or something customized with their logo or their brand on it that you send them, instead of just sending them swag with your bank's logo on it, like send them something for their golf club that has their logo on it. And so doing things like that systematically, baking it into process, ensures that you're going to get repeated results over and over and over again. So I know both you and I have built our entire businesses around process, but I think it absolutely applies to what we're talking about today.